Looking at a finished building, many of the most crucial elements may be invisible to the untrained eye. From stormwater management to accommodation for emergency vehicles to ADA accessibility, civil engineers are responsible for ensuring a space meets the needs of its users. How is it that RTM's project partners can trust that our civil engineers will rise to the occasion? It all begins with the technical expertise needed to execute excellent engineering. That's on this episode of Beyond Engineering, a podcast from RTM Engineering Consultants. Hi, I'm Celine Dirks, your host for Beyond Engineering, where we share stories about innovative design, collaborative development, and exacting execution that helps buildings, businesses, and the people working inside them work better. Today, we're continuing the conversation between Matt Whisler, a civil engineer at RTM, and his fellow Principal Dave Piluski. Matt and Dave are no strangers to high levels of technical expertise. Their conversation covers several specialized projects, each of which required unique insights and expertise. But first, we begin with a reflection on the value RTM brings to their collaborations with project partners. Dave poses the question.
So Matt, maybe put yourself in the shoes of our clients and our project partners, and can you share what they probably see as the value that our civil department brings to the table?
Sure, Dave. Stepping in their shoes, my opinion is that we've established a long relationship of providing the technical skills required, the value, and the overall trust. It didn't happen overnight, but we've been responding to our clients' needs, whether it's do a lot of work for architects, we do a lot of work for owner developers, even institutional facilities. But through that, they call us all the time and ask for advice. And we're here to answer their questions for them. It took a long time to develop the technical knowledge to do that, which is what developed the trust. But they see the value and we're fighting for them also.
So sometimes that's even outside of the scope of a project. You'll get random questions as we're maybe in site development before you're even engaged.
It could be a year before we're engaged. Yes. We do help a lot of developers looking at projects before they've even thought of purchasing them. They'll give us a call. What do you think about this piece of land? And in 10 minutes, we can walk through something and maybe it's quickly shut down, or maybe it's, hey, we've got a good one brewing. We'll get ready to start on design when you get the land purchase completed.
So tell us about Woodridge Police Station.
That was actually another project with Studio GC Architecture. Like I said, we had developed a relationship working through Geneva Library and some other projects before this one hit. And this one was actually a design build project. So a little bit not the standard approach. So we were working for the contractor and the architect was separately working for the contractor. And they had a contract with the Village of Woodridge to design and build the fire station under one contract. Contractor was involved from the very beginning of the project, helped us through schematic design. Most important aspect of that is they provided the pricing. Every step we went along the project, the owner knew how much this was going to cost. We were able to make changes on the fly to accommodate that. From an engineering standpoint, it was an exciting site. It was geographically a great location for the facility. It backed up against one of the tollways, a major highway here. So it wasn't a good place for residents or anything like that. So it was a great opportunity for a police station, and the property also included a public works facility. So they were able to combine resources from the village into one facility that we designed both for. The only aspect of the geography that made it interesting was it was about a 30-foot hill. And so as you can imagine, a police station needs to be flat and accessible and, safe for the officers in difficult situations. And the public works facility is the same way. We have large trucks running in and out, a lot of heavy equipment, storage for materials, a salt dome, things of that nature. So again, we needed to provide them a safe workspace. So the challenge was flattening out a 30-foot hill and transitioning elevations between them, which presented a lot of opportunities for engineers to get really deep into stormwater aspects because we had to control all the stormwater coming from this site down these slopes and hills. And then an important part of that was also providing ADA accessibility. So as we transitioned up the hills, we had to make sure that the public had a safe way to get into the site and away from the site and use it.
So Matt, this was a previously vacant space that without this innovation, without your partnering with the city, may have remained vacant, may have been unappealing to a commercial builder, a commercial facility like a restaurant or something of that nature, right?
Correct. Yeah, based on the geography of the property, it would have been difficult to develop. There's a kind of an industrial area to the south, and a large industrial building on a hillside doesn't work very well either. Not good for residential, and an office would have been a little challenging also. So the dual function of the facility that they chose with the public works and the fire station, we were able to stage one lower on the hill and one higher on the hill, keep them separate, unique facilities, was a good use of collaboration between the ownership team, the contractors, and the design team.
So we've talked about how RTM Civil Engineering has recaptured sites that may not have been developed or developed well, and how improvements have been made to sites and mainly handling water and stormwater and how that affects building sites. But there's a big aspect of things that you've been involved in where we've looked at historical buildings and historic sites that have been around for a while and really need to be brought up to date and improved and to be brought into this century for better use. Can we talk a little bit about a project that you did with Chicago Public Schools?
That's a perfect example. Yes, Wilma Rudolph Elementary School in Chicago is a perfect example of that. It was built in 1908 as the first school for children with disabilities.
Oh, wow.
And it's still used to that today. So the project was small. It was an ADA playground, but they didn't have an ADA playground at the school, even though it's for children.
Oh, geez.
So it was kind of like coming back from 100 years of correcting.
Matt, that's just amazing that school being approaching 120 years old, that through our efforts at RTM that we're able to play a part in bringing it into this century and having it not left behind. And it's still a useful institution for kids today.
The fact that it has been that long in Chicago Public Schools was that forward thinking at the time to provide this. It was a large facility, fully accessible. So it is great to be part of that legacy. And one of the most interesting facts also is one of the first interracial schools in the United States, even, because there were no guidelines there. It was all children with disabilities, and all the kids got along just fine. It was a great learning facility for everyone. It started out in 1908 as the Spalding School for Children with Disabilities, which it was the very first Chicago facility, very early at the time that the school had been developed for children with disabilities. It was a 4-story building. They'd built ramps inside the building for wheelchairs and easier access and stairs. And they actually had the playground on the roof of all things, because it was in the city of Chicago with no room to build. So at some point in time in the last 100 years, the playground was removed from the roof, but it was never replaced in a fashion that would serve students that were at the school. To this day, it's still used for children with disabilities. And so Julie Ordauer Landscape Architecture brought us in on a contract she had to create an accessible playground. So from what started, in 1908, we were able to circle back and provide a unique playground for all of the children at the school. One of the exciting things was a swing for wheelchairs. So they can wheel right in, it locks in, and it's a full swing facility, which is really cool. And the surface, again, is all ADA accessible. We're able to use a permeable rubber surface. So again, rainwater in Chicago is important. So we're able to handle rainwater below grade and stone storage also there, provide a smooth surface and 100% accessible facility for the students.
All right, Matt, let's maybe get into our DeLorean time machine here and go back even further than 1908. Let's go to 1840 and talk about the historic Nauvoo Preservation Project.
Yeah, all the way back to 1840, 1844. It was a very interesting historic project that McGuire Gillespie Architects, along with Carol Yetkin Landscape Architecture, brought me into. I'd done a lot of historic home preservation with them, so Frank Lloyd Wright preservations. So they have a unique touch to historic preservation, and I've provided the site restorations for them. So this was a natural fit. The site's located out on the Mississippi River in western Illinois. It's a historic religious site for the Church of Latter-day Saints. And the church had spent 30 years doing archaeological research, LIDAR and GPR to find old homes that existed in the 1840s so that we could restore them. And so their bicentennial is coming up in 2040. So the project was to restore some of these old homes as they existed in the day. We spent a lot of time researching records. Church had fantastic records. We were able to get a lot of research from them, read a lot of reports about the engineering feats of the time in 1840. The engineering accomplishment was it's on a bluff. The site is a bluff, and then at the base of the Mississippi in the swamps, and they're able to drain the land and create farmland and live in this habitat, which was a feat at the time, which is exciting. So they settled the lower river valley and built their temple on top of the bluff. There's a historic temple on the site that is the focus of the site, but it gets, tens and tens of thousands of visitors every year. And on that bluff, the most predominant people in the community had their homes on the bluff looking at the temple. Joseph Smith, the architect of the temple, all that were on that hill. So the houses that we restored were like in that region. And our aspect was they had a picture from like 1860 of what the hill used to look like. There was a factory built on it, a Catholic church at one time. And so it doesn't look anything like that. And so we recreated basically that picture so that when tourists go, it looks like it did in 1840. So a lot of them had been torn down over time. They did GPR and all these digs and found foundations of one house that was purely just a stone foundation that was like 4 feet below grade. They took the houses down to the frames, sent them off, had them all the wood stripped and brought them back and put them back to the original condition. And so we provided the civil engineering to restore this historic part of the town. As you can imagine, they didn't have fire trucks and ambulances at the time. So the roads that we created, we wanted to look like 1840, which weren't asphalt concrete, they were gravel, but they had to hold up to emergency vehicles that, could come to aid today. So it was exciting to work with the team to develop a unique gravel mix that we could have on a steep slope it's a 100-foot bluff, and the site's built into the side of it. So we had a lot of engineering went into that. We had to manage the stormwater runoff. There's now a town above it that all the water comes down the hill that they didn't have to deal with at the time. So we had a lot of drainage design on that. And then hiding other infrastructure. There's transformers, they're electric power now. We had water, we had fire hydrants, we had storm sewer infrastructure that they had. So we put a lot of effort in using landscape to hide those type of elements and restore what it would look like walking the path in 1840.
So you think that gave a great opportunity for us to look back and see how civil engineering worked, especially in such a challenging site back in the 1800s versus some of the innovations that you brought now?
It does. At the time, the settlers had determined within a few months that the water was running down the hill along a layer of bedrock that was about 4 feet below the surface and would flood the lower swamplands. So they had dug trenches at the time, diverted water out to the river, kept it away from the low flatlands, and were able to create farmland out of it. And those ditches still exist to this day. You can still see bedrock at the bottom, which is exciting that they're hand dug that long ago with horses and men. So we're able to recreate that in the town, yet use modern infrastructure. So it's a lot easier to convey water in a storm sewer pipe than a ditch. So we're able to blend the two together and make it look like it would have at the time. One of the unique aspects of this is it's not your everyday run-of-the-mill commercial shopping center, your quick-serve restaurant. It's a really unique project. Through that, we're able to provide a lot of insight into the younger engineers. They could see how things started when early America in 1840, what they were designing. They were designing at the time. They were surveyors laying out the land, laying out the drainage on the roads. So we're able to look back at what they did at the time and go through time as products advance, as engineering concepts advance. So we're able to take the young engineers through this whole process up until modern day. We had to apply modern day building codes, stormwater ordinances. So it all had to fit together. It was a unique opportunity to provide learning.
So it was essentially a living classroom that you could walk through and you could see this evolution of what you do, how it was done before, and how you're applying what we do now to this same site.
Yes, a true evolution from early engineering to where we are today.
Are you launching a career as an engineering technologist? Or are you a proven professional in the engineering fields looking for new ways to advance your career? Consider joining RTM Engineering Consultants. We support your growth as you sharpen technical skills, deepen business experience, and diversify capabilities across services, specialties, and markets from coast to coast. Our mentors are seasoned professionals committed to sharing expertise and passing knowledge from one generation of engineers to the next. Visit our careers page at rtmec.com to explore employment opportunities. That's rtmec.com. Learn why industry authorities consider RTM a great place to work, grow, and advance. Meantime, plan to join us again for another episode of Beyond Engineering, a podcast from RTM Engineering Consultants.